something called emetophobia, and that's an overwhelming fear of being sick.
Suffering from it, Natalie Pickersgill. Her life's been taken over by this for the last 20 years. Times it was so bad that she had to carry a bucket with her wherever she went, and she's obviously in a lot of discomfort as she joins us now this morning with psychologist Angela Rotunda. How are you feeling, Natalie? It's a big thing to be sitting here for you.
Yeah, very nervous.
Yeah? And do you feel, are you nervous, what, about being sick as such, even as you sit here? Especially on telly. Well,
Not my best move.
Be a good one, wouldn't it?
No, it's a fear that lives with many of us. But when you say you're worried about being sick, are you actually talking about vomiting here?
Vomiting and the feeling and the build-up of it. Fear that I'm going to be around someone that's got a stomach bug or eat something that might cause me to be sick.
But your big fear is actually throwing up.
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to kill you or something? What do you feel?
I don't know. I just know that it's overwhelmingly terrifying to think of it.
But could I ask you, when you actually do it, I'm sure you've had to do it at some stage in your life, is the reality worse than the expectation?
No, probably not. The last time I was sick was about 16 years ago, and the build-up to it was terrifying, but afterwards there was a strange sense of relief that it was over. But then the next day is another day. It could happen again.
Natalie, in a way, how I relate to you, I can relate to this so much. I would do practically anything rather than throw up. You know where you come across people who they go out for a night's drinking and whatever, and they say, I'll just throw up here. Yeah, I'll just do that.
Off.
And then I'll feel better and whatever. But people do this all the time. I mean, I would do anything.
Yeah,
I would lie in bed with towels on my face, anything, rather than actually throw up.
But this is not just like, oh, I don't really fancy the thought of throwing up. I mean, this has impacted so badly on your life, hasn't it? It started years ago.
About 20 years ago, yeah. I mean, I don't do anything that's associated in any way, shape or form, even eating carrots, because the joke is always diced carrots, so I don't eat them. I don't drink.
And you think this was kind of set off by a car journey?
That's what seemed to happen, yeah. I was sitting in the back, didn't want to sit at the back, and 20 yards down the road I said, no, I've got to sit at the front, and it just didn't go away.
So you had that feeling of that car sicky feeling,
yeah,
and it never went.
The kind of nausea and the sweating, and it never went away.
So what have the doctors and things, obviously you've seen people about it, what have they told you about it?
At first it was kind of not known. I was actually struck off by a doctor who said I was just after attention. I did move to a different doctor who was very kind, but it's usually straight on antidepressants and get over it.
Strange treatment, Angela.
It can help. No, the antidepressants can help with the anxiety, and you know there's so many different triggers for having a phobia. I mean, it's the 6th most common phobia, being sick, and it actually makes sense. It's something that's quite disgusting, and you know we don't like being around it, we don't like talking, but if you've got a phobia, it's an overwhelming fear, and I think with Natalie it's the anticipation of that she's become avoidant of, and that's one of the behaviours that you engage with when you have a phobia. You avoid going places, you restrict your life, and you start to panic way before you even encounter it. And when it gets to that stage, that's, you know, you really, really need help to overcome it and start doing different things. Now with this, there's a lot of negative thinking. Something bad is going to happen, and often what therapists do is called counter conditioning. Instead of going into a situation thinking I'm going to be anxious like this one, we've been talking about it earlier before we came on, about deciding to be relaxed in this situation, because you know after 20 or 30 minutes you realize that you've survived it, and once people recognize they've survived it, then they can do it again and again. So there's different kinds of therapies, like exposure therapy, you know, gradually
Come back tomorrow actually, and the next day, and the next
She'll be
day.
fine by the
But
time.
have you tried any therapies? Or?
I've had one session of group therapy, which I just sponged and took everybody's fears and added them to mine. But then I've seen a lot of CPNs, different people to talk.
CPNs, what's that?
Community psychiatric nurses that come out. I find that it's okay because talking is fine. I can talk the hind legs of a donkey, as you can see, but they still have to go home after the hour, and they're not there in the evening.
Natalie, I see the car business you were talking about. Oh, how I had that car sickness. It was awful. How my parents ever went out the door with me and my brothers a year younger. We just constantly sick in the car. But you know what it changed for me? When I learned to drive.
And me. I learned
to
drive,
Sit in the front seat, be in control, and then...
Don't think about it when I'm driving.
And can you ever be a passenger now?
I can, but I'm a very, very bad passenger. The window's wide open, rain, snow, shine. At one time, my kids used to have blankets in the back because I couldn't close the window.
I know that, you know, there was a time it was so bad that you used to carry a bucket around everywhere. You wouldn't go out of the house. You know, you are out of the house today. You're a lecturer. So how do you control it? What is going on right now, say, in your mind? That
it's pretty reined in. You know, I'm talking to you, but I'm not really here. I'm in Armageddon round the back here. It's just doing what I need to do, and I will do what I need to do, but I don't enjoy a second of it.
But Natalie, why are you talking about it then? What do you want to achieve? What recognition do you want? What good is it doing talking about this?
I'm hoping that people will understand that we are rational. We do know that we're crazy. You know, the things that we're saying, if I say to you, I feel sick, I've got to get out of here, I'm not sitting there thinking, oh, that's real. You know, I am just a normal person, but sometimes you have to sit in a corner and rock and foam at the mouth for people to take you seriously, because on the outside,
that is the problem, Angela, isn't it, with
normal.
phobias, that everyone goes, oh, pull yourself together, you know, it's only a spider.
So not helpful, so not helpful, because it is overwhelming, and psychologically we get ourselves tangled up in, you know, we've got the palpitations, the sweaty palms, you know, people get depressed, they feel anxious, they can get into what we've talked about before, which is obsessive behaviour, to avoid it, and this is why therapy is so important, where people can learn to gradually confront what they're afraid of, so that they don't lead, you know, small,
Angela,
restricted lives.
Is that treatment you're talking about, or a cure? Is it treatment or cure?
Well, I think that's a very interesting question, because with some people, their phobias will go away. You know, if it's as a result of a distressing event, for instance, being in a car crash, and they get treated for it, those distressing feelings can go away. But with other people, when they face and confront another situation that, you know, makes them stressed, those feelings can come back. And then we're talking about getting into a situation where you've got coping mechanisms. So it's kind of, oh, here I go again. There's a spider running across the floor. You know, I understand what that means. You know. From agoraphobia.
Well, I think it's interesting looking at Natalie, because she's saying, you know, you seem very calm, you're a lecturer, and yet all this is going on. And I was talking to her this morning saying, when I first started reading the news years ago, I used to always think I was going to faint. And I'd read a whole news bulletin, and this side of my head was going, oh my God, I'm going to faint. What should I do? Should I just faint? Should I say, I'm sorry, I'm going to faint? And it's amazing,
this is what
isn't
I'm doing
it?
now,
That's what you do all the time.
I'm talking.
But I think sometimes also what we do is we hang on to, we talked about fear and being scared before. Sometimes being afraid and scared is quite safe. You know, carrying a bucket around is quite safe. I know how to worry about feeling sick.
I just don't know how to be well.
What I don't, yes, we talked about this. I don't know how to be well, and this is something else that we'd teach somebody in therapy, how to learn to be well and how to learn to be symptom-free or cope with it differently and more effectively.
Well, thank you for coming in, and I hope your coping mechanisms carry on working.
You've done brilliantly.
Life gets better. You have done brilliantly. I know how worried you were this morning, so thank you.
Well, if this is the 6th most common, we're going to get a lot of calls on this morning.